This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for How to Super Age with Elise Marie Collins. And Elise, in the last week, due to all my health issues, I have taken on a lot of new tasks, I guess, setting new goals. And one is really eating clean. And I'll tell you, I haven't lost an ounce, but I feel terrific. So, the whole concept was maybe I would lose, a few ounces along the way, but if I can feel this good, it's wonderful. And I got that information out of your book. So thank you.
You are so welcome. And just to kind of drive home what you said, a lot of the things that we talk about on this show and that we do to age in a way that's healthy, they make us feel good and it's more fun. We have more fun. So why not do it? Sometimes people think it's all got to be deprivation and discipline. And I try to help people live into their true nature and live to be their deepest self, because I think that's how we're going to age. If we're going to be 99 years old, I was telling a client this last night, she said she has a neighbor turning 99. I said, do you want to have those same negative thoughts in your head when you're 99? Because you pretty much start to get rid of them. You're like, I turned 80. I don't want to have this, I'm not going to be harsh on myself anymore. You start to get gentler as we age. This is true. And even the research shows it. I'll just hold up my books and then we'll get to our guest because she's going to tell us a lot of the same things from her perspective, which is very interesting. This is a book, Chakra Tonics, Essential Elixirs for Mind, Body, and Spirit. I wrote this back in the day over 15 years ago, and I'm actually right now writing a little add-on. It's going to be reissued. It's so exciting this year. So you'll hear more about it, but it has foods, drinks, mostly drinks, but kind of smoothies are almost like replacement meals in here. I need to send that one to Karen too. And then we've got Super Ager, which has lots of tips and tricks. We want to have fun as we age. And we're going to hear more about that. I'm going to announce our guest. And we have a wonderful guest today. Jenifer Joy Madden is the founder of DurableHuman.com and the online parent education classroom, Durable You. She has written 2 books and also has a TEDx talk on how to be durable. Jenifer is a certified digital wellness instructor, a health journalist, and an adjunct professor of broadcast and digital media at Syracuse University. Last and the best, she says, she's the mother of 3 grown-up practicing durable humans, and one of whom has a 1-year-old wild human of her own. Yeah. So we're going to hear more about that today. Let us know if there's anything else you want to say about your bio, Jenifer, or Jen. I call her Jen. I know Jen. So
not a thing. You covered it very well. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, tell us about your TED talk, your TEDx talk. How does it relate to aging? What is it about? Because people always love to look up those TEDx talks, and I'm sure they will when they hear more about you.
Yes, well, of course, it does delve into what it means to be durable. And durable is not like resilient. We hear a lot about resilient these days, where people have encountered adversity and they are knocked down. And do they have the capacity to get back up? And that's great. It's wonderful if you can be resilient, but to be durable is to be able to withstand life's bumps in the road, to be able to just keep on trucking when you run into problems and have those capacities inside of you to keep moving and keep your spirits up at the same time. So it's about that. And it's called Durable Humans Are Smarter Than Their Phones. So it's honoring we humans and all our capabilities, things that our smartphones don't have. I know that they can see and they can hear and they can tell when they're upside down, so they have proprioception, but they don't have a lot of, well, most of the senses that we have, such as our compassion, our curiosity, our creativity, our intuition especially. So that and my first book, The Durable Human Manifesto, really go into why we should be proud of ourselves and that it's worth it to act to keep ourselves durable. So that's most of what's in the TED Talk. The other part is that it begins with attach and detach. To be durable, we need to do both. And so it talks about attachment between ourselves and other people, and especially between parents and children, and that sometimes we need to detach from things that want to attach to us, such as our technology, our phones, in order to keep attached to people. So that's a lot of what's in there. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's amazing. And one thing I got out of what you said, and I've spoken to you about all these issues before, but every time I speak with you, I hear something new. And I was kind of getting, it's like durable is almost like shock absorbers, and resilient could be you're going out on the road with like really worn out tires and you could have a blowout. So it's more preventative, it sounds like. You're working on the preventative side, which we're sorely lacking in the West, because we have, a medical, we'll just call it a medical system without going too deep into it, that waits till you get to the end of the line and then we worry about things rather than, front loading it so that we're more durable. And we're not just talking about health here, we're talking about mental, physical, all these different things. So there's so much to unpack there. But what's interesting too is our cell phones. And that's something I've been thinking about since, because I'm writing this add-on to my book, and cell phones have been around. Smartphones, we'll call them smartphones. Cell phones have been around for a while, but smartphones have really changed life on Earth, and they've changed a lot of the way we do things. So how does that add to the stress? Like, I know one of the things you talk about is controlling stress. So maybe that's two questions in one, double bonus, but how do you help people control stress? And I know you work with kids, we'll get to that, but how do you help people control stress? And how does that relate to smartphones?
Sure. Yeah, smartphones. So I founded durablehuman.com in 2009, which is 2 years after the Steve Jobs introduced the smartphone. So yes, I agree with you that the smartphones were the real game changer, because they could carry the world. You could carry the world around in your pocket in terms of, access to as much information as you could muster, and also the immediate ability to get in touch with loved ones around the world. And those were real game changers. And that's really why it can be so difficult to be durable around smartphones, because they are a bottomless bowl. There's no end to what you can get out of the smartphone, and you can get caught up in different things. Staying up to date is just the least of it. Right now, there's a lot of news to keep up on, and some of it can be very distressing, and too much of that can be a real problem emotionally for us. And so what we need to do is we have to remember what keeps us durable and to protect ourselves from being sucked down the rabbit hole, basically, to be conscious of how we are acting in the world and act to protect ourselves and to protect our minds, our bodies, and our spirit. And there are different ways to do that. Our body and our minds are very interrelated. And it's a matter of being conscious, being mindful is a word that you might use, of your activities and your environment. And that's really the name of the game with smartphones. So we have to be smarter on our phones and create boundaries around them at certain times to stay intact mentally and physically.
Yeah. What I know, there's something that you taught me about was what is, and this will be new to most of us because it's a new thing, but what do you call the last generation before cell phones? What is that all about? Because I'm just going to say one more thing about aging too, because I work with older adults who are, trying to get used to cell phones and get used to smartphones and learn how to use them. There's still a lot of people that are learning how to use them, including my parents.
Sure. Well, right around before I founded durablehuman.com, I started to outline this book, Last Generation Before Cell Phones, because immediately I felt like we were going to perhaps lose part of ourselves that we had developed our whole lives. So the last generation before cell phones are really people that grew up before they had a cell phone. That means that we got around on our own. We didn't have a tracking device when we went outside to play. We drove across the country without a GPS. And we did these activities that would be considered, people would be afraid to do them today. So I like to say in the manifesto, this book, which is very sensory, meaning it has a lot of pictures, to remind us about our, awesomeness as human beings.
Can you say the name of the book? Because some people are listening.
It's the Durable Human Manifesto. And it basically says that we were freewheeling risk takers and we didn't even know it. And so everybody who grew up without a cell phone has these intuitive qualities of self-reliance that we didn't know that we had at the time, but now we can look back and feel pride, and also, I believe, can impart our wisdom on people that are never going to know that. However, we can also talk about wild humans, Elise, which you mentioned at the beginning, and those are babies. Those are newborns that come into the world. They are not yet attached to the digital world. So it's a unique once in a lifetime opportunity for them to express their humanity by exploring the world with all their senses, which is what they do. They arrive and they're ready to go. And we really have to stay out of the way during that precious time of life to allow them to get around. And who knows, maybe that's where there can be a special bond between babies and people that have been in the last generation BC.
Wow. Yeah. That's fascinating. And it also elevates, I think a lot of older adults are a little insecure, some of them more than others, that, I don't know, I didn't grow up with technology. They kind of get it thrown the other way. So I love the way you're reframing it, that it's actually this amazing positive experience that made you more of a risk taker, made you more intuitive. And it ties in with the wisdom, because as we know, not everyone, like growing wise is like something that we can do. We have to cultivate it. And so you're bringing it to that rather than technology is something for us to devalue ourselves about as we grow older. I know. Yeah. Karen works with a lot of people on technology too. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah,
And
I feel like now we actually have it. People in the last generation BC who are beginning to use technology or have a phone or anything like that, they have all that wonderful experience and knowledge and wisdom, and they also have a new tool. Besides hammers and nails, they may also have a phone that they can use, and other devices that can support them in their durability and in their humanity. And they may have enough perspective to know, to recognize about the importance of not being sucked down the rabbit hole. And in fact, as the research is now showing, the devices are sort of made to suck people's attention in and keep them from doing other things that they need to be durable.
Yeah.
Like kids are, using video games, in particular, those that are designed to be very engaging, can be very hard to stop doing. But kids need so many other activities in order to be a fully skilled adult that they can't. Boundaries have to be put in place to help them understand that they've got to do a lot of other things besides just play video games.
that is very interesting. And one of the things I know about aging as a gerontologist is how we grow up, and especially those formative years, 0 to 7, are so very important, vitally important. I mean, we can do things to repair and heal some of the, if we've had some trauma or injury later in life, but it's harder. It's easier to set off the children, the wild humans. I love the wild humans to, like you said, teach them, give them boundaries, give them literally tools to deal with the tools. And one of the scary things I learned about from you, and maybe some of our listeners don't know about it. Again, we're learning. We always want to learn on this show and grow. It's part of How to Super Age. Is virtual autism. Could you? And I hope I said that right. Is that right? Yeah, virtual autism. Tell us about that. What is it, and can older people get it, or who gets it?
Oh, can older people get it? I would say that no, this has been identified in babies. This is a problem among people that are basically 0 to 5, and it does come from their access to technology too many hours a day. This has been a problem. It was just identified, I don't know, maybe it's coming on 10 years. Doctors in Romania, France, Iran, Japan started to notice in their pediatric practices that sometimes the parents would come in and they'd be all upset because the child was developing fine, doing okay, knowing a few words, etc. And then they started almost to devolve. It was hard for, you couldn't get their attention. They wouldn't respond to their names. They would forget to some words. They would stop talking. And just by chance, especially, well, in both France and Romania, they were asking questions of the family, and they found out that there was a lot of screen-based devices were on all day for the child. So in the early days, it was TV on in the background all day, and also maybe the child starting to watch VHS tapes of the same show over and over and over for hours. Well, that has really developed into something much broader, because now with cell phones and tablets, a little baby can actually can use the device all by themselves, and they are caught up in it, and they are staying with it for hours a day. So in the pandemic, people are writing into me every day saying, oh my gosh, we didn't realize, but that kept the baby quiet while we were teaching the other kids online, helping them with online school. And suddenly the baby in the crib is using a tablet, 6 or 7 hours a day. And what happens is that because it's a two-dimensional environment and the child isn't using their other senses for long periods, the research is pointing in the direction of the fact that the child's brain development actually changes, because at that age, the baby's brain is it's developing really quickly, and it develops according to its environment. And if suddenly a lot of the senses are taken away and there's way less face-to-face interaction with the loved ones around, then the baby's brain kind of responds to this 2D environment.
Wow.
I find this interesting because on the weekends, I support IT at a big box store, and we have parents who come in for a 6-month-old to buy an iPad. And I stand there and I cringe. I believe in a lot of the, educational things that you can get on an iPad or on a, Chromebook. But again, unless there's that interaction between parent or teacher and child, to me, it just seems to be a very sad situation in our society, because do they even know what they're looking at? Do they even know what they're hearing if there's no interaction?
Well, Karen, you are intuitively hitting on how to approach a situation where there may be virtual autism affecting a child. And that is not only to take away all the devices that the child has access to in the house, including turning off the TV in the background, but at the same time, this face-to-face socialization and interaction has to be ramped way up. So basically it's, you substitute one for the other. And the child must, as most last generation BC people know, intuitively, the child needs to stare very intently at your mouth and listen to your voice and study you in order to be able to speak. And if that's lost on a screen, and research bears that out. Therefore, a lot of kids that are overdoing the technology on a daily basis are falling behind in language skills and things like that, to the point where, you know, once it gets over 2 hours a day, every day, it's directly interfering to the
Sure.
point where they're going backwards.
Wow. I wonder, I'm a big fan of intergenerational, well, it's like a fan, that's not the right way. I think we need more intergenerational relationships. And I'm wondering if any grandparents, I know we have some grandparents here today. Jen's a young grandparent, and you know, helping the young wild humans, like I know you're doing with your, is it granddaughter? Is that correct, Jen?
It's grandson.
Oh, grandson, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just to be aware of this. And if we were living maybe near our generations in the US, especially because we're such a big country and we end up spreading out, we don't have that same contact. You know, I actually grew up around my grandmother. That's one of the reasons I think I became a gerontologist, because I had that contact with someone from early on. And my mom was working, and so I often spend time with my grandmother, but we don't have that as much of that double whammy. It's been disturbing to me as a yoga teacher working in the Bay Area where there's a lot of technology. Someone will hire me as a yoga teacher to work with them, and sometimes their kids are there. I try to involve the kids in yoga, but sometimes the parents literally just hand them you know, a device to look at. And when it first started happening many years ago, I was like, your 3-year-old has an iPad? I mean, it was like, I didn't even have an iPad, I think. So it's a very complicated and something that I'm really glad that you're highlighting for us. And it does span the generations, and it's a way that we can all work together. So maybe tell us a little more about your idea of the wild human, because the wild human, I think also, you know, because young people and then older people, I think we get wilder as we get older too. So I love that idea of the wild human, and maybe we get socialized, but in a positive way. And then we go back to being wild. Tell us, what is a wild human, and how can we be more wild in our old age too?
Okay, well, those are wonderful, multifaceted questions. So I'll do my best. So I was mentioning that sometimes I think it's better to just like flip it around and give the positive aspects of why you would want to protect, get out of the way. So again, in the Durable Human Manifesto, I'm like, parents' job is to protect their child's wildness. And because why do they need to be wild? For a while, they need to fully wire their brains. Now, you can understand this. In the early days, we humans, we needed all our senses for everything. And not only did we need to see, hear, taste, and smell in order to survive, all those had to be integrated. They're integrated in our brains. It's a very complicated process, but those first 3 years are those years when the brain starts to figure out what all the senses are and to wire appropriately. So the first thing that these wild humans need is to fully wire their brains in a bushy way. I use an analogy of a broccoli. You want your child to have a broccoli brain, not a broccolini brain. Broccolini brains are sort of tall and skinny, and they have a little bit of broccoli stuff on top. No. Let the kids be out there tasting and smelling and moving around. It's so as we move our bodies, we're also wiring our minds. So they're learning about their own operating systems, and that's how their minds and bodies work, how to balance, you know, how to stand up. I mean, all those things that they do naturally is to just allow it to happen. It used to just happen. We didn't have to think about it. But now we have to protect it. And the third thing is, I believe every child is born with a special spark, a special something different about themselves, to the point where they are going to fill a niche in the world that nobody can imagine. And that child needs to access that. They have certain talents, they have certain abilities. They need time to figure out what those are. They have to twist the little knobs on the bottom of the crib when they're lying on the floor. They have to, you know, scribble with the crayons. They have to do all that stuff. They have to listen to the music. They need to be present for their environment, and their environment has to be as rich as possible so these kids can develop their own personality, their own abilities, and their own talents. In the manifesto, I give the example of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and I say, what if Jobs and Wozniak had video games and phones at their disposal at all the time? Would they ever have accessed these new ideas that they've had? They're revolutionary ideas. I mean, this is like a weird, chicken and the egg argument, but it's kind of like, there are other Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniaks that are going to be born. They need to be able to get back in their brains and have enough wherewithal to come up with their own creations rather than be stuck with, just somebody else's video game design. That robs the user, if they overuse the game, of ever being able to create anything themselves. And, I think that the future of humanity needs different ideas. We need to keep coming up with different ideas in order to be relevant in society. I think if everybody thinks alike, we don't have anything to contribute. And we'll be taken over by machines. We're expensive. We take up a lot of resources. So we actually have to protect our future by allowing kids to differentiate and come up with their own personalities, so they develop their own ideas.
I love that. And I'm just going to remind you of my question, but I wanted to go off a little bit because have you ever heard of the Continuum Concept?
I have not.
You might enjoy that book. Continuum Concept is something I read when I became a new parent. It's a woman who, it's kind of like a wild human book. It's all about attachment parenting, but it's a woman who I don't think she was a parent, but she noticed that the moms in New York City were like so protecting their kids before cell phones. But then she went to the jungle. I forget where she lived, but Jean Liedoff is her name. And then she saw that parents were doing the opposite. They were letting their kids be totally wild. And it's an interesting idea. And another friend of mine actually wrote a book about her recently called Jungle Jean. So sidebar, we'll put it in the notes. But I think that these ideas also, I just wanted to remind you, if you have any ideas, this might not be your expertise, but how we can go back to being wild humans as we age, because there's something about it where, we're kind of conforming more, maybe in our middle years, maybe not all of us, but it's the super agers, the ones that are really, I'd say, thriving, and it's nothing to do with money or, in health, in a way that we may have some health setbacks, but you're honoring yourself. They seem like wild humans to me. So I was just wondering if maybe you can connect other dots that I can't. Okay.
Well, I did want to talk to you about what I think are the 5 pillars of being durable, and that all these people that we're talking about, part of the last generation BC, are inherently wild humans. They started out that way and they lived the longest of anybody that way too. So I want to give the example of my 98-year-old father. He lives in the Asbury Spring Hill community in Erie, Pennsylvania. I have been there twice to give talks to congratulate these people for living in this place because it makes them more durable. And I'll tell you what those pillars are. The physical, that place supports them physically. There are long hallways that people have to use to get to the activities. That makes walking a no-brainer. It's a thing that people naturally do. They have exercise classes every day, and they have sidewalks outside. So again, it's to make physical activity sort of a no-brainer. That's what people can live in a neighborhood like that, or a community like that, is be moving as a rule without having to make a big deal about it. Like to get in a car to go move away from that neighborhood is what I say. Then mental, these folks, they have speakers, lecture series, discussion groups. Mentally, it's intellectually stimulating. The third pillar would be social. We humans love each other, we need each other, and we really wilt without human, interacting with other people. So they have a dining room where people can eat together. They have happy hours and celebrations. And again, in these hallways and on the sidewalks, people are greeting each other on a regular basis. There's an element of getting people out into social life. And then nutritionally, as Karen said, clean eating is really important, and that's what they're doing there. I love to eat with my dad. They have an entree, they have a whole selection of salads and vegetables and fruits, and then they have a dessert. Awesome. That's for the spirit. That enlivens the spirit every single time. That's why they make no bones about eating dessert, and I love it. But, you know, the portions are appropriate. They really are. They're not huge. And then the fifth pillar is just natural. Wild humans are, if you draw it out, we're human animals. So wild humans is a wild human animal. We need nature in order to thrive. And so in this particular place where my dad lives, you look out every window and it's just a picture of beauty all around. Green, as research shows, is a buoyant to our spirits, and somehow it calms us down. And so being around green is awesome, and that's nature. And so that place supports those 5 pillars. And I think that treating yourself kindly by doing that and not getting sucked in by a lot of negativity and in motion, like no motion, is what is going to prevent us from becoming our best wild human selves at any age. But, you know, toward, you know, when we're more mature, it's very important for us to maintain our human nature then too. Does that answer your question? What else can I say for you?
And the only thing I'd be curious about, I love the way you framed it, because it's something that we can cultivate. It's like practices. Those pillars are like practices that we can cultivate our entire life. The only thing I can think of, and you may or may not have an answer to this, is like the connection between early in life, we're being protected, but we also need to protect our wildness. And then later in life, I just get the feeling, you know, we kind of let go of some of the things that didn't really serve us. Maybe they're, like I was saying with my client, you know, she's thinking, oh, I shouldn't do this. This is bad. And I'm saying to her, you know, do something that feels good to you. Do it because as Karen was talking about her dietary habits, you change them and then you feel good. It's not because somebody may tell you to change, but you're doing it because you want to feel really good. And I think as we age, we shed some of these things and become more wild. So it's like the shedding. Why are we shedding more and getting more wild? I don't know if you have anything about that.
Well, I think people toward the end of their career they've gotten through a lot of difficulty and they have survived. It's beautiful. I mean, even now, you know, getting through the pandemic, you know, maybe gives them a new lease on life, and they're not bogged down by little things or pettiness, and they just want to just enjoy life. And that maybe that's what you mean by being wild, of just being not too concerned with what's in and what's now, and, you know, what other people even think of us. You know, just to enjoy and spend time with people that make you feel good. You don't have to, like at work, you know, you just have to spend time with people that, you know, you have to. But now you can choose. You can choose who you want to spend time with. You can choose your environment more. You can choose those things that make you feel better and are going to make you last longer. Durable means built to last. So that's all so we all want that. We want to last as long as possible. And that's why we have to act. So I think people have to be more assertive in those age groups, because we gotta, you know, we have to maintain ourselves and preserve ourselves and get out of the way. So maybe that's this get out of the way notion, is don't get in the way of me taking care of myself. And also don't tell me what to do. My dad, before my daughter got married, just said very clearly, I'm not coming to the wedding because I don't want to travel. I feel comfortable here. And I feel that that's going to push me over the edge, you know, knock me out of my equilibrium. And I really respect that. And I think people have to really maintain their equilibrium in the best way that they can.
Yeah. And it's choosing, I hear you're choosing the quality and what you want to do. Nobody's telling you what to do, or they're advising you, you know. I really like the way you said that. I heard a lot of quality over, you know, like you get And that's something the research bears out, that we choose quality relationships. We choose things that we really love as we get older, because we do realize time, we're not, when we're young, we just feel like we don't know. It's a long expanse. So that was that was a great answer.
Good. as we age, if our children don't respect us making those choices, that's when it becomes difficult. And I've seen that a lot. We were very lucky growing up that my parents told us at a very young age, okay, I'm going to make my choices until I can't. Now, my mother always told me she was going to tell me when she couldn't. And we used to tease her about it. Hopefully you can tell us, but if you can't, can you give us a hint what things will be like? And my mother made all of her choices up until 2 months before she passed away, because she got ill and she had no idea that she was ill. So we had to take those choices away. But the way we communicated with her, she still believed she was making her choices. And I think that's adds to the quality of life for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just thinking that I wanted to give you an example of a couple people that have really made changes in their lives. And I'll tell you about each of them and you'll see what I'm talking about, but they have made these choices, but they've made a choice to take action and not to have inaction. So maybe your mom took action. She acted and she said, look, this is how I feel. This is what I'm going to tell you. So she did sound like she was an assertive person. But one is my cousin who's 55. She's a breast cancer survivor. And she started doing Pilates about a couple years ago, and she does it pretty religiously 3 times a week. She said she was so proud of herself. She said, I'm a 1/4 inch taller. Can you believe that? She went to the doctor and she was a 1/4 inch taller. This is a person who doesn't accept anybody's notion of a cancer survivor. And she doesn't look at the age and say, well, I'm deteriorating, so I'm not going to try. That's not true, but somebody might feel that way. So that's one. I was so happy, elated and shocked when I heard that she had grown a 1/4 inch, and knowing that my height is not as tall as it used to be. But anyway, I'm gonna have to think about it, what I'm gonna do about that. And the other one is my friend who I just saw a couple weeks ago. We hadn't seen each other for a long time. A year ago, I feel bad. She got my attention. She said, Jen, I want to tell you I have Parkinson's. Of course, I felt very badly about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you go through your daily life and you think people are going to be fine, but their lives are going on too. And some things they happen to them. So anyway, guess what? I finally go see her. She's smiling. She's looking good. She's looking, I don't know, energetic. And I say, well, what's going on? Well, I want to tell you that a friend of mine told me about a podcast, Elise and Karen, can be very powerful for people. And it was for people with Parkinson's. And she said that the way to get stronger as a Parkinson's person is to, wait for it, rock climb. Yeah.
Interesting.
Rock climbing. This is a person who had a tremor on her whole left side. My sense would be like, don't ever do that. But apparently there are experts who help these people, and the way that they're lifting their arms and pulling their weight up and using their legs, my friend has greatly increased her strength and her tremor has greatly reduced. And so these are 2 people that are staying durable by acting and having faith and getting out of the chair and feeling like I'm gonna try this, darn it. I'm not going to deteriorate. And so I don't know. I think those 2 can be I hope they could inspire some of your listeners.
I totally 100% agree, especially that the contradictory actions. I think it really speaks to the fearlessness. And that's, I think, what I thought that's the kind of the heart of this conversation is we get wild, we let go of fear. I love that. And I know we're coming towards the end of the podcast, and I'm wondering, you showed me something really cute that you have a little package. And I think we'll all be smiling. We'll describe it if you're listening, but could you hold up your little package that you made? It's something your you're selling online to remind us of all the concepts we've talked about today. She's going to hold it up.
Okay,
and
okay,
we'll
but
smile.
I will describe it because I
Okay,
know that
great,
this
great.
is audio for most people. So I made a wild human welcome box for new babies to receive as a gift. It's actually for their parents, and then it says, "Welcome to the world, wild human."
And it's really cute design. With leaves.
Done by my son, who's a designer, and I'm very proud of him. And he helped me design that wild human logo to really look wild. As you can see, it has wild jungle looking things and leaves. So in that are my 2 books, which is the Durable Human Manifesto, and then How to Be a Durable Human. And this does have a lot to do with ourselves interacting with technology to make sure they don't hurt our ears, our eyes, our psyches, our attention, and all that stuff. So that's in here. It's not as colorful, but it's got a lot of listicles that you can learn from. And then I also have a gift certificate to my online course, A Guide to Your Wild Human, which is otherwise known as Supercharge Your Baby's Brain and Language Power course for parents. And then, so the wild human can show off wild human onesie that they can wear around. And my daughter said, why are the words on the back? I said, because you got to get out of the way. That child is going to be on the floor crawling. So that's where you put the name. That's where you show their label. So anyway.
That's adorable. I hadn't noticed it. I just was taken by the onesie and the design. I didn't know it was on the back, but that's awesome too. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, you can think, I'm thinking like instructions, the front could say instructions not included, or something for others. Back, watch out, wild human.
Exactly. That's right. I'll think about that for the front. But yeah, the course is very positive. It talks about the ABCD of new parenting and renewing parenting. It's like A for attention and awesomeness, and B is for boundaries and for brain development. So it talks about brain development and how we have to have boundaries around so we can pay attention and be attached to our babies. That's the other A for attachment. And the C would be curiosity, creativity, and containment. So again, don't go to the playground with your toddler and just be on the phone the whole time. First of all, they can get badly hurt falling off equipment, but try to plan it, understand that time is going to be a sacred time, and, you play with them, keep an eye on them, just to have containment of parts of your life, because there's some times where you really need to be there for your child, which is pretty much their waking hours, to be paying attention as much as you can. And then D would be durability and design your life. So design your household. So there are times in the day where you're really making sure you're having full face-to-face contact with your child of any age. So that would be at meals, to put the devices aside, everybody in the whole family, be a great role model. And then also at bedtime, an hour or 2 before bedtime, have the devices go away and have the family be connecting with each other, and children have enough time with their own thoughts that, again, they can access their creativity. They can develop a moral framework, and a sense of conscience. They need quiet time for that, rather than input. If scroll, put it aside so they have that skill of being alone with their thoughts.
Fascinating. Well, it's been great to have you, and we probably will have you on again, especially as you keep on putting these helping parents to raise wild humans. And I think everything you said would be great for older adults too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenifer. Absolutely wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so happy that you invited me.
We'll put your website in the show notes, but what is your website?
Durablehuman.com.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Everybody have a great day, and let's all be durable.